views and opinions expressed on Think and Grow with Vette Green does not reflect the views of Charm City Direct TV Network. Some language, videos, and content may not be suitable for young viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
What's going on? What's going on? Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Think and Grow with Vette Green. Now, the Kings have come back, you guys. They have come to bring you guys some information. They have come to bring a mindset change. They have come to bring awareness, and I hope that you guys will enjoy the show. So, first off, I want to bring up Mr. Calvin Coleman. Come on to the stage. Calvin. Welcome. Tell the audience who you are, where you're from.
Sure. My name is Calvin Coleman. I am originally from Buffalo, New York, and I currently live in Chicago.
Thank you for joining, Calvin. Thank you so much. And next, I'm going to bring up Darine Jones. Come on in the room, bro. Thank you, Darine. How are you today?
Good yourself. Thanks for having me back.
Thank you.
My name is Darine Jones, and I reside in Buffalo, New York.
Thank you, Darine. Next up, I am going to bring Brother Mike X. Come on in the room, Brother Mike.
Hey, peace.
Welcome.
I love that energy.
Gotta
energy.
bring it, bro.
Yeah, I'm Brother Mike, better known to a lot of people as Brother Mike X or X. I'm from the Bronx, New York City. I'm glad to be here tonight.
I'm glad you're joining. I want you guys to definitely bring the energy. Next up, I'm going to bring my brother, Nick. Come on in the room with that energy, Nick. Come on in the room.
How y'all doing today?
I'm
Nick Smith, known as a lot of things, sincere from Lock One in New York outside of Buffalo. Glad to be back. Peace and blessings to everybody on the panel.
Glad you're joining. And last but not least, I am going to bring up Rose Goldy. Come on in the room. Tell the audience who you are and where you're from.
Hey, how you doing? I'm trying to fix my connection right now.
It's all good. It's like that sometimes. This is what happens when everything is virtual. You got to learn to work with it. We can't be together in a space, but we can bring, with technology, we can come together and with as like minds. And that's one of the reasons why I asked you guys onto the Think and Grow podcast today, because I love your energy. I've seen you guys. I know some of you guys personally. I've seen what you guys are doing through your social media. I see how hard you're working to make a change in your life. And I want to bring that type of energy to the audience. A lot of people, what I've come to realize is when they don't see it, they can't believe it. So they don't believe it's possible. They don't think that a man who grew up in the projects and was incarcerated at one time could own his own lawn business. They don't believe that a man could actually work so hard and pull himself out of the struggle to become a single dad and working around elements that may not always benefit him. They don't see that, but that's what I want to highlight tonight. So Rose Goldy, if your connection is set up, you want to tell the folks who you are and where you're from? Can you hear me?
Oh, you lost him.
His connection, yeah. So we're going to get started, you guys, while he's fixing his connection. I just want to get started. So about a week and a half ago, and we're going to show the video in a moment. About a week and a half ago, there was a judge in Louisiana who apparently there was some trespassers in her home. And there was a replay of the video that showed her and her family watching the video and the racist remarks that were made during the time that they were watching the video. Now, one of the issues with that is that this is a sitting judge in Louisiana. So she presided over many cases where the people were of color. And for her to make these remarks, although it wasn't shocking to me, for me, I felt a sense of relief. And I just want you guys to watch a brief clip of the video. Ediga, if you're ready, we can start with that. I just want you guys' reaction to this. Can you guys hear it?
Yeah.
I don't really remember this happening. I said the N-word? Yeah, you did. Watch and listen.
Oh, shit. The song goes, why are the lights when I pull up in the whip, they be saying, God damn.
Why are your lights on? They're like, pull up.
And mom's yelling, nigger! Nigger!
Kid, we have a nigger! It's a nigger! Like a roach.
Look, that's me. No, I came from the backside.
He trips. He trips on the roof.
I was the only one running. That's me. Kenny was standing. I'm the one that took him down. Kenny's just standing there.
He lied.
Yeah. That's my phone where it fell out.
Look, Mom. The dude had a phone on him. You should have taken his phone and stolen from him, that fucking asshole.
And now I'm going to have a gun.
I want to get the gun.
It's important. Very important.
As me and also maintain control of the situation. And the right thing is when look, there's Rebel. Want to play that show?
Okay, y'all. Now.
Okay. All right. So in the video, you can see that there was apparent break-in of the judge's home. Someone was trespassing on her home, and the sons caught them. Now, as they were watching the replay of the video, what the judge, now this is a sitting judge, the judge yelled, nigger roaches. How does that make you feel that to see something like that caught on camera and broadcast for the world to see? Were you shocked? And anyone can answer. Nick, you want to start with that, Mr. Sincere? Were you shocked to see it?
Not shocked at all. What I was really shocked about was the person who reported it, which is coming out that was one of her other sons that literally turned it in. That was the shocking part to me. And out of all the turmoil that came out of it, that's the part that we're not focusing on, and that sometimes we need to highlight. As much as we down white people for what they have done, what they continue to do, what they won't stand up for, once in a while we need to highlight when one of their own, which was inside this household, turned that film in. So the shocking part wasn't what she said. The shocking part wasn't that it was caught on film. The shocking part still would be if she get away with it. But I like to highlight the part that it was actually turned in by a family member who disagreed with a long-standing tradition of decades and centuries of family beliefs that was instilled with him, but he chose to fight it. So that's what I really choose to highlight about that film, and everything that occurring about that is there's nothing I ain't believe. I know haven't happened a lot of times. I just like to highlight the fact that we starting to get this next generation who's into hip hop, who's really into black culture, to really get into black people and saying, we might don't like everything, but to say these things, Ma, come on now.
You're muted.
Calvin, how did you feel watching that video as a black man, a single black man raising a black son? How did that make you feel to see that? Were you shocked?
Same as Nick, no reaction. It wasn't surprising. It didn't move me one way or the other. It just happened to kind of be caught on camera. More shocking than anything else was the fact that it was a family member who saw something wrong and kind of decided that they didn't want that to be out there. I think the other thing that's a little bit interesting is that because she's a sitting judge, there's no way to remove her unless she resigns. So I think that maybe needs to be addressed. Trying to figure out how we go about when there are big infractions like this, you don't just get to apologize your way out of it and
That's
then
right.
wait for it to kind of die down. But again, it wasn't surprising or shocking that this sort of bias exists at home and on the bench.
So I'm glad that both of you guys highlighted that about the son, because to me that says a lot also about the judge. Like, what type of person is she that your child would do such a thing? So did anybody else want to tap in on the video before we move to the next topic? Because what I really want to talk to you guys about is what now. And Nick, you had actually sent the video in one of the chats, and I had watched it, and what they were saying is that we as a community, as Black and brown faces, we have to stop looking at our lives as if we're victims. And I believe that, and I believe that one of the changes that has to be made is that we have to first know the history. In order to know where you should be going, you need to know where the struggle came from. And we talked about this the last time, and many of us, and myself included, I did not realize the impact that the government had on the inner city, how these drugs were pushed into our neighborhoods, and many of us helped push these drugs into our neighborhood because we didn't know that there was a way out. We saw the glamour, the glitz, we saw the nice vehicles, we saw the beautiful jewelry and the clothes, and we thought, because that's all we saw, many of us, that's all we saw, that was the only way we can get ahead. So knowing what some of us know now, and Brother Mike, we had a discussion about this also. You said it's not that the problem is that we as a collective don't know. So we on this stage know, many of us don't know. And that's where I find the issue is you need to know what happened. So these drugs, if anybody has seen the movie Snowfall, it depicts exactly what happened. It breaks down how these drugs were pushed into the community. Coming where you came from, Brother Mike X, what and seeing what you saw, what made you say, you know what, I'm not standing for this anymore. I need to change my way of thinking because I see what's being done and I need to bring awareness to this issue.
Yeah, briefly, just to respond briefly to the video and then segue into your question. I agree with Brother Sincere, and I think and the other brothers, as far as that video didn't surprise me, it didn't shock me. What white people do does not drive my existence as an awakened, enlightened Black man who knows that the best power that I have is to strive to live up to principles and standards that allows me to be the best person that I can be. Now, I wasn't always at that place in my life. At one point in time, that probably would have affected me very, impactfully and drastically, maybe. But I'm longing for the day when more Black people will begin to know that we have a power within ourselves, that we derive and come from greatness. And if we would just focus on ourselves as individuals to continue to refine and evolve, to be the best persons that we can be individually, that will allow us to become magnetized and attracted to other Black people who are on that same wavelength. And if we would begin to just focus on doing the work that we need to do as brothers and sisters to rebuild the Black village, then white people wouldn't be as consequential in our lives as they presently are, because we're not doing what we need to do. Not enough of us are doing what we need to do. So what awakened me, to my purpose in my life, to my best purpose in my life, was El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, Brother Malcolm X, and his legacy, his autobiography. And I found Malcolm, through hip hop. It was hip hop that really brought Malcolm and the Black Panthers and Black culture and Black pride to my generation's attention. We didn't know about in the 80s and the 90s, in the late 80s and early 90s. A lot of us never knew anything about Black pride and Black power and Black culture. And it was hip hop that introduced it to us, So I don't want to, I know that there's a lot of great minds and consciousness on the panel, so I don't want to eat up too much of the time talking.
Whoever want to tap in next on that. So Calvin and Rose, you guys were born in the 80s, and the rest of us, we were growing up in the 80s. So it's looked at different. You guys are at, I believe, a bit of an advantage because a lot of the bigotry that we had to face, you guys may not have to face, which is a good thing. But that's not to say that you guys have not already faced some racist things in your life and seeing the impact of what drugs have done in the community, especially when you look at the east side of Buffalo, or you go down Broadway, you can see the impact that crack had in these neighborhoods, and we're still trying to get back from it. But I believe the challenge is, like Brother Mike said, there's not enough of us, and a lot of people don't like to use the word woke, but if you think about it in that context, woke is just a mindset of knowing what happened. When you know what happened, then you move differently because your focus is like, okay, what happened here? Now I need to move differently. Go ahead, Sincere. Come on and tap in.
Yeah, but I like that saying, but we're past the stage of knowing. We've been knowing. We've been knowing. What happened was we got scared into not acting again. We got diluted with the drugs, as we just were speaking of in the 80s and the 90s. When another topic you're going to get into, what you were trying to transition into with the Black Panther Party and everything to do with the FBI, where though they sabotage these things because we had become like-minded. We had to start supporting each other. So the 80s and the 90s was an experiment for them to see how far they could dilute us. The 90s and 2000s is a chance for us who grew up in the 80s and 90s to redeem ourselves and see, can we build this community back through the hard work. So knowing the past is one thing, but I think you more or less have you learned from the past.
That's the key.
Because we know it. We know what was wrong. A lot of us still know a lot of these holidays we celebrate is wrong. But dare I say we still celebrate them? A lot of us do a lot of things that we know is still wrong. But do I dare say we still do them? So knowing, as the cartoon says, is only half the battle.
Anybody else want to tap in on that? When did you realize what happened, or have you realized what happened living in the inner city and seeing people that look like us that don't have the best jobs, that aren't sitting in these corporate conference rooms? What's your thoughts on all of that?
Well, my thoughts is that we all given a chance, is that they're given more opportunities than we are, is that we don't take advantage of our chances. Like I said, I don't like to play the victim too often, because I was one of the ones that didn't have to play the victim and chose to play the victim out of ignorance. I'd have wanted to be a part of something, that wasn't even a part of themselves, because they didn't know themselves. It took me to go off to college and still another decade after that, as the brother would know, being from the Bronx, to get knowledge of self. So it took me trials and tribulations of being part of what I thought was the white community, as you know, only black male high school, thinking I was doing that way to really understand that if I really still don't know me, just knowing my history wasn't good enough. I had to know what went wrong in my history. Where was the mistakes made so I wouldn't repeat them? And as you see, I repeated a lot of them because I knew what they were, but no one taught me how to change them. No one taught me the next move. And that's the next step in our community. You know, we were beat into submission. You got whooped when I did wrong. And I'm not going to fault my parents, but they hit me, they punished me for doing wrong, but they really never taught me what it was to do right.
Because they didn't know themselves. And that's
exactly.
That's what I found. That we keep carrying these, I don't want to say these chains. We're carrying stuff based on how we were raised from our childhood. And when we look at our own parents and our grandparents, we can see where their struggles were. And now we're doing the same thing. Many of us grew up in poverty. Many of us have had lights and gas cut off. And sometimes when you looked in the refrigerator, all you saw was the back. That's real. And when we look at our counterparts, and not to say that white people have not had the struggle, but the struggle in Black America has been greater. We have dealt with mass incarceration. We have dealt with these drugs being pushed into our neighborhoods. We have dealt with slumlords. A lot of times when we go for these jobs and you look at the pay grade, we're the low ones on the totem pole. So how does that make you feel knowing all of that? And what are the steps that we as a community should be taking now? And I like Nick, and I just want to go back to what you said about focusing on self, because that's what happened with me as well. I had to start focusing on myself. Once I began to do the work from within, then I can focus on my outside. So I know that was a lot. And if anybody can just tap in on that, like what now? Now that some of us know, what now? What steps should we be taking to uplift our community? What steps should we be taking to uplift ourselves?
Well, first off, I'm gonna be brief. We got to stop talking as if Black America is a monolithic, homogenous group. This we that we talk about, there is no we. We have not organized ourselves towards being able to come to, to be together and be that we. We got to stop talking as if we have done that job, And then we also have to stop saying, you hear a lot of Black people saying, until we all come together or until we all wake up, there's nothing that we can do. And that is a defeatist mindset. It's a wrong mindset. A strong group starts with 1, 2, 3, 4, and then on up. Mm-hmm. That's how you begin. So as individuals, like you're talking about, individuals have to start taking responsibility over their own lives and pulling themselves out of ignorant behaviors by doing the knowledge, extracting principles and standards and values that they're going to begin to stand upon and build their own truth and stand in their truth. And then, and they represent ideals, they exemplify, they become examples, for others to begin to follow and connect with. That's how we're going to begin to pull ourselves out of victimhood or pull ourselves out of dependency. Individuals are going to have the strength to stand out and distinguish themselves on principles. The problem a lot of times is people don't want to take the responsibility of letting go of worldly flesh-based behaviors. Like it said, there was a meme on social media. It says you can't defeat the demons that you still enjoy playing with. So a lot of times, man, people be talking and running their mouth and talking about they want different. If you want different, you can have different. It starts with the man or woman in the mirror.
Yeah. If you want different, you do different. Darren, you knew you wanted different. You said no more corporate. You saw what was going on. How did you realize that you wanted different? What led you there? Because you're like, no, if it comes down to it, I'll go and work for one of my brothers because I know I'm going to be all right. What brought you to that mindset? Because you had to make the choice to do that.
Well, for me personally, it was reality. First of all, you got to go through the system to know that you're in the system. First off, so I had a personal situation that exposed me to that, and that's when I realized like they only have control or power when we're in their system, and unfortunately, us as a people, we really don't talk about creating a world where we don't need the system. We want to better ourselves in the system. And at the end of the day, if we're going to try to better ourselves in the system, that's why I've been quiet. Like I'll listen to people while I do my own mission, but my mission is outside the system. My mission is what's stopping us from saying the hell with them. Like you could use the N-word all day, but if you have no one to use it on, then what? what's the purpose of it? Like, I'm to the point now where it's like, they obviously made it clear they don't like us, but they need us. And so I'm petty. If you don't want me around, I won't be around. But that don't mean I'm not trying to set up a world where I'm gonna say I told you so. And there's more than enough of us to start our own world, but we're still regurgitating things from the system. And I tell the kids all day, like, don't ever let an adult school you, because us adults are regurgitating the same information that grandma was saying. But it's y'all kids that found out another way to make money. Like, it's these kids that are doing these streaming apps that are they're millionaires, and they're like 17, 18. And I think it's time for adults to humble themselves and realize, like, maybe we don't got the answer because we're still stuck in this 400-year captivity.
That's right.
It's only us to blame, but we're still regurgitating knowledge. And if you got two sides to a knowledge story, it's like, well, why are we still regurgitating this? Because if you believe the history, then you have to admit that the history that you're going to choose to accept or believe, you're also creating that person. Whoever created the history is also going to dictate your future. And we have no proof of any of this. So I don't tell my kids that we're from Africa. To me, it just doesn't make sense when you put all the pieces together. I tell them we were here already. I just don't know how we lost our land to people that came from another land. But there's two sides to the story, but we regurgitate the system story. But you can go to a library or a Barnes and Noble, and you'll see there is tons of information that the curriculum is not going to teach. But at the end of the day, the system is not going to jail. You can go buy a globe or a round earth ball. It'll tell you on the back for decoration purposes, not for educational. But in educational systems, we teach that. So it's like, unfortunately, it all comes down to, well, what part of the narrative are we going to accept? And if we're accepting their narrative, then at the end of the day, you can't work with someone who's everything that's up here is what the system put in it. So what I do, I take whatever information I have, but whatever makes the most sense to me in my reality, that's the path I walk in. And so I create my own history, I create my own future, but it will always be based off of information that we all have. So it's, at the end of the day, it's like no one can really say, well, this brother's off the mark. Because I really ain't. It's just, okay, how are we perceiving this information that we're getting? So like the video that you post up, there's just no reaction to me because the first thing I thought, well, somebody from this household put this out.
Her son.
It's deliberate. So when you guys said her son, I'm like,
allegedly,
okay, that makes sense. But is this part of the narrative to get us wild up? Because everything to me is entertainment now, including the news. And
go ahead.
By thinking like that, it's really hard for me to ever come out of my character and just flip. Like, I try to make sure that the emotion that I'm feeling, I have enough time to process it, to give it its proper physical reaction, if that makes sense. Because they're just looking for reactions out of us. And because we haven't learned how to process emotions, it was the one episode you did where, like, men don't cry. That's not a good thing, though, because we don't cry, we don't process emotions. And so the first time an emotion triggers us and we can't process it, well, we're just going to pick the first physical reaction that we think warrants it. And unfortunately for Black men, it's usually something that's going to get us in trouble and back in their system. I give credit to women all day, because men can't handle the things that women do, because there'll be no more men, because we don't process emotions and energy, which is the system is putting out. And if we just as men just learn how to process stuff, we wouldn't be having these discussions, because there'd be no discussions to have, because they'd be hanging off our coattails. We want to be them so bad and we don't know it. But if we're regurgitating their information, their knowledge over and over again, then by default, we're them. Like, you are what you believe. And if everything we believe is them, then how can you hate them if you're regurgitating this? You're them as well. So I just realized that it's a system, it's a program. And when you don't think like them or how you want them to think, then trouble starts. And we're looked at as Black Panthers and stuff like that. When they can't figure us out, they can't control us, then you got to set the narrative to get the masses to help you destroy what we're doing right here. That makes sense.
It does. So I like how you said that you have the ability to create your own life. And I thought about you, Rose. You are working hard to get your music up and running. What makes you keep that drive, even though it's challenging and you have to deal with your everyday? You're still saying, you know what, this is my dream, and I'm going to keep chasing after it. You're a Black male living in America, and there's so many challenges around you. What makes you just keep going? Oh, you're on mute. It's the connection. Yeah. While he's working on that, what about you, Calvin?
You
because
on mute, bro.
Yeah, we come from I lived in the projects. You lived across the street from the projects. Even though for many that doesn't seem significant, but Nick, you know what I'm talking about. The side streets was a whole nother that was a whole nother being. If you lived on the side streets, you were thought of as having some wealth, and that's how misconstrued the information is. So Calvin, talk to me about what drove you. What made you say, you know what, I see everything that's going around. You know, sometimes I have to walk to the bus stop as a kid, and I see the people out here that's looking for crack cocaine, but I don't want to live like this. What made you say I want different and find that inner drive?
I don't think that there was ever any specific moment or specific action. Also, too, I think that in a lot of ways I was somewhat protected from seeing it. While it was there, I was somewhat oblivious that it was actually happening. Like, it just wasn't a part of my reality in a lot of ways. It wasn't until I got older and things were explained that I even really kind of knew what necessarily was going on in terms of what was the actual change or cause. Again, I don't think it was any specific moment, but I always had adults, be it like my parents or grandparents or just other people around, who kind of encouraged me, spoke life into me. Never, like, I don't know about other people, but for me, I was never told that I wasn't allowed to dream or I wasn't allowed to be anything that I wanted to be. So I never felt like I had limitations. That never really existed for me in any real way, I guess.
That's funny that, so I have a panel of 5 Black kings, and each of your circumstances are a bit different. But the one thing that you guys have in common is that you cannot erase this. And this, unfortunately, is the first thing that many people see when we encounter them. So, Rose.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right.
Yes.
So I love your drive, and I'm so proud of you. I'm so very, very proud of you, because you are not stopping. You're like, I'm going to get this thing up and running, and I'm going to put myself out here. I'm going to drive my own car. I'm going to create this life for myself that I want, and it doesn't matter what everybody else says. I love that we're all on social media together, because I can see your posts and I can see where your mind is, and I see it cracking open. It's like a nut that's cracking open, and all the pieces are blooming now. So tell me, what makes you continue to go and drive yourself?
I mean, I basically don't want to be another statistic out here. You know what I'm saying? Like they they kind of look at Black males as, kind of being negative. They want to put us down. I have 2 daughters, and I want to have a better future for them. You know what I'm saying? And it's basically, you know what I mean, like us against them is, certain ways, you know what I'm saying? So like I use my music to go ahead and, try to put messages out there to let people know that, you could do things with your life other than, trying to be out here in the streets, other than trying to, do negative things that they want us to do, though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like I want to bring it back to that video about with the judge. It's it's to be expected, but it's scary in a way, though. You know what I'm saying? Because any one of us can be one of them people that's standing in front of her, and she got that mindset like that, though. You know what I'm saying? And she might not show it in front of her colleagues or nothing. She might go home and do all her dirt, but when she get up on that you know, on that stand, she gonna treat you just the way, you know, what she calls you. You know what I'm saying? Just what she said in that video, that's how she gonna treat you. You know,
That's
and
the
you know,
scary
it's
part.
scary. You know what I mean? So, you know, I'm definitely, you know, on the grind, trying to do what I got to do with this music and everything, and you know, trying to get back in school and, you know, do what I got to do as a, you know, African American
That's
male.
what's up.
You know,
That's what's up. It's about
I'm sorry,
driving yourself, and
I'm
you
sorry,
guys.
I got a little cold, man. If my voice sounds a little crackled.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
All right.
I want to take it back to what all of you guys seem to be saying, and that's it's that inner person. It's that inner drive that you have that's going to make you overcome those challenges that you're going to face. Once you walk out the door, once all of us walk out the door, we're faced with many challenges because of the color of our skin. And we have to stop looking at that in a victim mentality. I don't feel like a victim. I feel like I was able to overcome a lot, and I've gone through a lot. It's by the grace of God that I'm still here standing. It truly is by the grace of God. And with me knowing that, I'm able to move like that. There's a quote, a scripture, Jeremiah 29:11, that says, God knows the plan he has for me. I feel like if more people realize just that all of us have a plan, all of us have a purpose in our lives, then we'll begin to move much differently. I look at the state of where I grew up at, and I look at the state of the city, Buffalo, right next to Lackawanna, and I think to myself, you know, there's so much talent there, and there's so much so many smart people there, but many don't realize that you can be a scientist, you can be a rapper, you can be a doctor, but they aren't seeing it. So how do you feel about that, Nick? Go ahead.
And even about Philip, I want to touch on something the two brothers said about.
Oh, go ahead.
Both of them really spoke on. It ties into what you said too, also though, about creating our own existence, more or less, or accepting that we don't need them to exist. Where do we start?
In here.
That's my biggest question. Like, how do we get ourselves to believe that we don't need them? Because at the end of the day, it's been so diluted. We must admit, things have, 30, 40 years ago, okay, this is why they broke up our families. Because the buildup. But now we're at a place where everything is diluted again. Everything is, some people are good, some people are bad, they hide it better. You even having things on video that still doesn't change anything. You have the Indians who have their own and still seem that they haven't progressed within the society. So without your own land, without your own property, what do we actually do that's tangible? And I'm not saying we don't keep striving for everything we deserve, but where does the foundation start at?
We have, so I'm so glad you highlighted this. I was talking to you guys. Remember Christopher from the last episode, and we were talking about Biden, his presidency, and what he has said is that he feels as if Biden is rocking us back to sleep. That at least now Trump was a horrible president, but I realized that what he did was he made us unite more. And now Biden is sending us these stimulus checks. He's raising food stamps. He's doing all of that to make us, and this is where the conversation was, to make us more comfortable with not having our own. So they're feeding us, if you think about that. And I remember when I first arrived in Chicago, and I realized I arrived in Chicago with $350, and I went from my mom's couch to Calvin's couch. Thank God I had family in Chicago. And I remember thinking to myself, I never want to give anybody the ability to tell me when I can eat or not. And I feel like in some ways, Biden is making it comfortable for some of us so that we don't want more. You're
okay. I can agree. I can agree with that. But Trump, I just don't like the fact that he said Trump brought us together. All Trump did was highlight our division and bring the division group stronger together. But okay, Biden is slow rocking us. So I can agree with that. Biden is slow rocking us. Trump, was going to get this. This is the key, which I can't fault Biden for. They're going to try to beat us either way it go. Biden tried to do it with less bloodshed. Why I kind of didn't mind Trump, because sacrifices needed to be made for us to progress. I hate to say it that way, but what Trump was doing, what he thought he was winning at, was truthfully allowing us to come together and let all our different shades of blackness understand that they look at us all the same. It had been a long time since we had the yellows, the browns, the blacks all saying, this one guy don't like none of us.
I'm so glad you said that, Nick, because that's exactly how I feel.
That was the beauty. Right. That was the beauty about Trump, but you needed some depths. And as we said with Biden, the comfortability of America in the world right now, people don't want to make those sacrifices no more.
That's it.
I just came from the penitentiary. They gave these kids, and now they got pads, iPads.
In the penitentiary.
Yo, listen, you tell them to stand up for something, and they tell them they're going to take their pads from them. Man, they ain't standing up for nothing. They can lock them kids in their cells all day. They don't care. Just don't take their iPads from them and not music. So you right. They rocking us to sleep at the same time. People ain't willing to make that sacrifice no more.
That's the thing, Nick. The people aren't, and that's what's so frustrating to me. And I want you guys to tap in on this, because so we're up on this panel and we see what's being done. We see how they're giving away things to us to make us more comfortable. I know more people that's on unemployment right now than actually working. I've never in my 45 years seen this many hiring signs, but many people will not go out there and get those jobs because they feel comfortable in the system. And not to say, because I've done the food stamps, Medicaid, social services, welfare, I've done all of that before, but I realized living off of $109 every 2 weeks was not getting me anywhere. I had 3 kids and I was getting $109 from social services every 2 weeks. That's $218. How can you possibly live off of that? But what they do is they make us think that that's the only way we can live. They make us think that the only way we can get medical coverage is by going downtown and getting Medicaid, but that's not true, because we can get these jobs. We can get these jobs and get these and build our lives up, but we're too comfortable, I feel like, and many of us are unwilling to do the work. So how do you feel about that, Calvin? What do you see is going wrong, and what do you think is one of the solutions that we can use to try and uplift our communities?
I don't think that there's any one specific solution. I think it goes back to what someone else said about kind of the self-awareness and knowing yourself and what's going to work for you and what doesn't work for you, and how you can apply that to a job, your career, whatever it is that you want to ultimately do. But I mean, yeah, I think that's kind of like the gist of it. I don't necessarily think that there's more to it. It's about self-awareness and how you apply that to where you want to go. In terms of the comment that you made about social services, I've never wanted to be bothered. I'm sure you all know all the paperwork, all of the in your business, all of you can't make this amount of money. I'd rather not have to be bothered with it. I don't care. It feels more of like a hassle to me than actually going to find the job that I either enjoy or something that interests me. So I think it's kind of a double-edged sword in that they want you to be poor so that you can kind of stay in that same place.
In that same mindset. Darren, go ahead, tap in. I see you shaking your head. You agree with what Calvin was saying. You're on mute.
I just agree with like what he was saying. Like, you know, it's pretty much it's like it just goes back to that system all day. Nick was saying, they give these inmates iPads, and if you think about it, at the end of the day, that's the only way they control you. They're controlling you with a resource they're giving you. And some people just got so dependent on receiving those resources that they rather just stay status quo. But the resources don't benefit everybody. I've been working since I was 16, but for the very first time as a 40-year-old, I needed unemployment. And I couldn't believe the loopholes you got to go through to get something that you put into your entire life.
Yeah.
Like we put into this, our taxes. But when it got denied, I just didn't have the energy to fight that fight. I just said that the hell with you guys. But that's just more ammunition towards why I want to destroy this system. Because it doesn't benefit everybody.
It's not set up to.
And it's really for the women. But try having a man, like you said, you got what you got. But if there's a man in the house, that's done away with. So it's like, why do I gotta meet this criteria to get your benefits and resources? And so that's how they control us. And it's like, why listen to a panel of us up here when none of you guys are taking care of me, but the system is. Now, granted, I can't have a man in the house, but I'm still getting the system to take. So like the brother at the bottom said, you might have to start with just 2 or 3 because you're not saving everybody, unfortunately. And that's what I think some people need to just realize. Like, we're not saving everybody.
Calvin, we've had that conversation.
And I get the Harriet Tubman's statement. You know, I could have freed 1,000 more slaves if they would. That's the problem. A lot of us really, they don't realize we're still slaves still.
Right.
The only thing that happened was everybody became equal with us. Like, they didn't free us. They just made the white people equal with us and gave them white privilege. So it's not as bad, but we're all slaves still.
I feel like that, Darren.
Don't realize that. And so
in some of these jobs, and not to interrupt you, I think about that. I really do. I think about, especially when COVID hit. So when COVID hit and we saw the people that were being affected greatly, the healthcare workers, and I was thinking to myself, because my son is a healthcare worker, he's a traveling nurse now, and he had sent me a picture of him and he had the mask on. My son, now keep in mind, this is my oldest son. He had the mask on. He was covered from head to toe. And I was like, oh God, you know, it didn't hit me until I saw a picture on CNN. And I thought to myself, oh my God, these jobs, and please, anybody that's in healthcare, please do not take this wrong. But if you think about this, if you put it in this context, a lot of these jobs and the wages that they're paying, the only thing that they did was they made slavery legal. They made it not legal. They made it where now even though you're working these jobs, they have to pay you. So they're going to pay you the minimum amount to do these jobs. There's healthcare workers that's making $12 an hour, but they're doing these jobs. They have to risk their lives working with COVID patients, and they're making $12 an hour. There's people working in factories right now, making $12 to $15 an hour. It's unfair because it puts you in a place where you have to be dependent. You have to have services such as Medicaid. You have to have services such as food stamps just to make a way. And one of the challenges that I see in my own community is that many of us are okay with that. Many of us are unwilling to elevate our minds and go to school, as Rose said. Sincere, I see you. Just one second. Many of us are unwilling to invest in ourselves and say, you know what, let me take a course or two to see what I can do with my life because I don't like where it is right now. Instead, we choose, and I'm going to say choose, and I don't, whether you agree with me or not, I believe that it's a choice to live how you want to live. It's a choice because we do have the ability to create the life. Like Darren said, we have the ability to create, yes, Lori, the life that we truly want, but are we willing to do the work? Rose, I see you out there pushing all the time. Go ahead, bro. Oh, 1 second. Go ahead, Sincere. You wanted to
let Rose go. Go ahead, Rose. Go ahead. Whoever's going to talk, go ahead.
Brother Mike, I was about to talk.
Go ahead, Mike. Brother.
I mean, you know, family, there's a lot of loose ends, you know, even in this conversation that we brought up. And I hope that we can tie in some of these loose ends. A very relevant phenomena in our community that has to be locked down, you know, before we finish this conversation tonight, or at least in setting up the next one. So we started out with the video, and you know, a lot of us already agreed, you know, F them white people, them racist white people. They don't want us, they don't love us. So why are we even fixating on them? F them. I don't care what they're thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
The son is someone that I could respect somewhat. It reminds me of a young lady in 2020, around the time when the whole George Floyd and Black Lives Matter and all of the protesting happened. And there was this young lady who was going toe to toe with her racist parents. And her racist parents was trying to talk about, you know, they savages and they animals. And it was this young lady. She was going toe to toe with her parents. And I think they wanted to kick her out or something.
Mm-hmm.
And she knew more of the history of systematic racism, you know, white supremacy, white skin privilege. You know, she knew more about it than some Black people do. And she was going toe to toe with her parents. And I was talking on a panel like this with other Black people who, you know, are so dominated with a spirit of anger and vengeance, you know, that they wasn't even willing to listen or give props to the young lady, you know, for showing and proving that she wanted to stand up for what's right and what's up for justice. And I was trying to say, yo, I got a lot of respect for her. But in that circle of Black people who were naturally embittered and angry and vengeful, they was trying to make it seem like, yo, Brother Mike, why you speaking up for that white girl? You know, I was like, yo, I'm just saying, she's standing up. That's what an ally looks like. That's what a real ally looks like. Someone who's going to go to combat against her own kind when she finds that they are, you know, racist. You know what I'm saying?
A lot of people don't understand. A lot of people don't understand how to be not pro-Black or not anti-white. Just pro-righteousness, as the nation of God speak. Exactly, so a lot of people confuse with bigging yourself up mean you have to hate something else, and that's not a correlation. That's why the nation. That's why the nation speaks on. We are neither pro-Black or anti-white. We are pro-righteousness. Right is right, regardless of the color.
And anti-devilishment, brother.
Exactly,
Don't
brother.
Forget that part.
Exactly. Yeah. Always, brother. Always.
Yeah.
But so that's the principle of that. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah. And one other thing that I wanted to get, you know, so that we can start, you know, to move towards the solutions. The reason why we got to know our history is the same reason why they're trying to make it law, you know, to not include critical race theory in the school curriculums. You know, they don't want us to know our history.
They're trying to hide their history.
When you don't know your past, you can't understand your present. And if you can't understand your present, you can never get to solutions to create the future that you want. So that's the reason why we have to know our past. We have to know. And this is why they want to kill Dr. King. They want to kill Malcolm. They want to kill Elijah Muhammad. And not only do they want to kill those seminal, you know, figureheads, you know, of awakening and empowerment, they want to kill the consciousness that they tried to instill in us.
And vilify things like the Black Panther Party.
No doubt.
We're going to talk
because
about
the number one thing that they want to keep us is asleep. They want to keep us ignorant. They want to keep us mentally dead. They want us knock us down to the level of the lower animals, like Malcolm said. When, you know, history is a people's memory. Without it, they are demoted to the level of the lower animals. They want us to be animalistic in our, you know,
killing each other and
that's right,
stabbing each other in the back. I like
victims of the flesh.
Go to break. So before we go to break, Darren posed the question: why does it seem there's more power in the white voice when speaking on issues of Blacks than our own voice? I'll say to that, Darren, is because a lot of us are afraid or don't have the knowledge to back up why we should speak up. Many people I've found don't realize that they have a voice. One of the most powerful things that we can do for ourselves is to raise our voice and raise awareness to the cause. Without that, without action, without us unifying and training our own self, we're going to be in the same place we are 5 years from now. So we're going to be going to break in a few minutes. We're going to touch on, I want to talk about how they vilified the Black Panther Party and what what would it look like if we had organizations like that step into the forefront in our communities? What if we built organizations like that within our community? I can remember as a young girl, there were different functions. We had the Friendship House. We had different places that we had the drama club. You look around now, you don't see any of that. And that's what some of the things that the Black Panther Party, they were doing. As a matter of fact, they were the ones that began that WIC program, the Women, Infant, and Children. That was one of the things that came out of that. They fed their own. And that's one of the things that interest me about that, because I didn't learn about Malcolm X and the Black Panther Party until I was well into my 20s. I think Denzel did that movie, and that's how I went and found out about who Malcolm X was. They didn't teach these things in school, and I think that it's our responsibility to teach our own kids their history, because they need to know where they're going and where their ancestors came from. I think it's our responsibility to take a hold of our communities and stop this senseless killing and stop acting like the animals that they're trying to make us believe that we are, because we aren't. We're very intelligent. When they went over to Africa and began bringing slaves over here, they didn't just bring bodies. They brought scientists. They brought doctors. They brought people that were doing things in their community, and they brought all of that over. And what they did was they left that history behind, because when they brought those people over, they forced them to forget who they were inside. And as Darren said, we're still holding on to that 400 years later. We're still moving with that slave mentality, even though we aren't shackled. Our hands aren't shackled, but our minds are. And that's why I made this Think and Grow with Vette Green podcast, because I saw what happens when you begin to think for yourself, when you begin to shed yourself of the systematic racism and start believing in yourself. So we're going to take a break. E Digger, you good back there?
Do you need something to watch at the beginning of the week? Well, look no further. Tune in to Charm City Direct TV to Barbershop and Mike's podcast, live every Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join Bro Mike, Sean, Vette, and Jasmine as they bring all the hot topics. That's right, on one show, Barbershop and Mike's podcast, live on Charm City Direct TV and on the official fan page of Barbershop and Mike's podcast on Facebook at Barbershop and Mike's podcast. Make sure you tune in and engage in the conversation.
Tell me what you see when you're looking at me. A pretty face? Huh? You think that's all I can be? Tell me what you see when you're looking at me. Because I strive to be all I can be. Because you know what? I found her. I found me.
She's here. She's live. She is Vette Green, host of Think and Grow with Vette Green. Watch her live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook at Vette Green. Also watch her live on Charm City Direct TV on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. You don't want to miss this dynamic show. A show of encouragement, inspiration, motivation, and so much more. So get ready for Think and Grow with Vette Green.
Thank you guys so much for coming back. Thank you. So I want to dive more into what now. What changes do you guys think we can make as a collective to uplift the communities that we're living in? And tell me something that you're doing or something that you've done to uplift your community. And we can begin with you down there, Mr. Sincere. I know you've been working hard. We come from the same place. It's definitely been challenging. And as a youth, you had your share of issues. But what I've seen from you is that you knew yourself within. And I think that's probably where a lot of your struggle was, because I can say for myself that I always knew that I deserved better. But the challenge was not seeing it. So I didn't think that I could have better. So with that being said, Nick, you are an entrepreneur. You have your own landscaping business. And again, you've had your share of troubles. What made you believe that you want it different? What drives you, and how are you using that same drive to motivate people in your community or the youth that you may encounter?
Really, the challenge was never knowing that I wanted different, because I think, and I truly believe, all of us want different. It was the process of going about it, learning the formula of going about succeeding, what success looked like, what it meant to sacrifice, what it meant to be humble. But also within that, as a lot of people that spoke on, not to be dependent. And it's a fine line in between the dependency and the motivation. And
tap into that.
Like Calvin was said, he was never told that he couldn't be. A lot of us was never told anything but to just make it.
Any way you can.
That's not instructions. We just touched on the Black Panther Party, the WIC program. These programs were established, but when the government took them over, one of the reasons why they took them over, because they were established to give a person a helping hand. The helping hand was always also with the instruction of how to not need this anymore to get better. The government interceded in order to tell you, no, this is enough just to live. So we become dependent on that, the handouts. Then they tell you, in order to continue these handouts, you must separate the household. So now we get the man out the household. So now we get the man out the household. Then we tell this same man that you have to jump through 4 more hoops than the white man to get the same job at a lesser pay.
With less pay.
So it's easy for us to always say, and I get when people say that we can't keep on blaming, there's no excuses. Well, there are a few excuses. The point I'm trying to make is, and within the nation is, how do you bring forth self-awareness, knowledge of self? Before I could teach you a skill, before I could teach you to read and write, I have to teach you who you are. And I think that's what we are failing as parents, that we're not starting off teaching our kids who they are and all their possibilities, and then giving them the instructions of how to go about it. As you said, I grew up saying I could be anything. I didn't know how to do it.
You didn't see it.
I just said go to school. I saw other people in these positions, so I'm not gonna say I didn't see it. I didn't know how to go do it. I was saying, so long as you went to school, you could get it done. And if you didn't go to school, go to the service. They'll show you how to do it. That's why I like the two brothers that they're saying that no, it has to be a middle school. So I had to go in debt $40,000 in college, or slave myself out to the service to learn life.
I chose
the 40,000
as you were speaking.
Go ahead.
Would you guys like to tap into what Nick was just talking about, Darren or Calvin? I saw you both nodding as he was speaking. How do you feel about what he said? Do you think that it's starting within us, and what steps do you take yourself to become aware so you move differently, so those struggles that we've had, that those aren't your struggles anymore?
Darren, you can go.
I mean, I was just, nodding my head, letting him know that, I agree with everything he's saying. He was kind of just finished, like, filling in the holes that, that I was speaking. And it does come from self-knowledge. Like, he made the perfect, and he used the perfect example, and because that's my reality. So hope mom's not watching, because I don't want her to feel like this is on her, but we all have that situation in our lives where, like, you're going to remember that, and you might not remember that you're the cause of it, and that's why I'm real careful how I speak to
They're
kids.
not the cause.
But when I was in, I remember my high school year, and I literally just quit a landscaping business. I was a kid cutting grass because I didn't want to deliver papers. And so I finally just had a fallout with my stepdad's like, man, I've been working since I don't know what it's like to be a kid. I just want to go to school, just go to high school, just be a kid, play sports. But my senior year, I got smacked with the ultimatum. You either got to get a job, you got to go to school, or you got to move out. Now, as a high school kid, like, well, I'm not going back to work. I literally just stopped doing that. Well, what the hell am I gonna do? Like, move out? That doesn't make no sense. So I went to school route. But because that ultimatum came so late in life, it was June, I missed out on all the, the student aid. Long story short, I ended up going to Damon College to learn some bullshit that now I'm learning on YouTube. So this is what I'm talking about. Sometimes adults, we just regurgitate shit that is you're just setting the next generation up to fail, especially when you're just, like Nick said, like, you could give me an order all day, but if you're not telling me how to go about this as a kid, then that kid is in trouble. And I think there's a lot of adults feeling themselves, they hear themselves speak. I don't think they realize the knowledge or the so-called information they're giving kids. Like, it's one thing to give it to these young kids, it's another thing to show them.
Yep.
And
we need an
we're
example.
to the point now where we need to stop talking, because we've been talking long enough. It's time to just let the kids decide who I want to follow. And unfortunately, because there's so many of us, because if you think about it as a blacks, there's only a few ways to come up in this society. You're either going to play sports or you're going to be in some kind of entertainment field.
That's what we're taught.
Still, exactly. But we can have these practices. Like, you go be a dentist, and if you worked in a dentistry your entire life, you try and tell me you didn't pick up enough information to leave that to go start your own. And I think this is the problem. Like, we have so much in us already. We're just afraid to put that confidence in ourselves, to where we'll keep pouring our last bit into them. And then when it's time to retire, because they can't use us anymore, we're useless. But then
go ahead.
You just worked your whole life. And most of us don't even live to see retirement. But you want to follow the narrative that we go to their curriculum, their school system, you work 40 to 50 years for them, and then let them spit you out. That right there, that's self-worth. And that's I look at it like a female that's being done dirty by a dude in the streets. If you're gonna let this man drag you through the streets, and all your friends are telling you, you're acting, you're just not thinking. Well, we're in the same boat. Like, the system, the government does us the exact same way. We want to hang on so bad, and it starts from self-worth, man. If you're gonna work in a medical field where they're making 30 something, but if you're gonna do it for $12, then how can someone like me stop you from doing that? Like, if you can't realize that right there, that's your first mistake. There's nothing I can do with you. It's always going to knowledge. And that might not be somebody's reality yet. This is something that I didn't know growing up. I got to figure it out. Like, life is the best teacher, but it's up to the younger generation to say, okay, do I want to skip some stages in life and pay attention to this old head or this old female that has knowledge that's just trying to prevent me from making the same mistakes that I did? And that's the hard part. Like, how do you get that into the younger generation where I'm literally here just trying to help you? And it starts there.
Lori had said that we have to teach the younger generation the blueprint. Tell me what you think about that, Brother Mike.
Yeah, we saying a lot of great stuff. And I think that we need to highlight some of that. And then by the same token, I think that we shouldn't be so hard on those who went before us, and even those who are ignorant now. You got to deal with, blame versus responsibility. White racism, white supremacy, white skin privilege, the system is the blame. And I could arguably prove that it's the blame for everything that we see in this world in general, and in the Black community in particular. White supremacy, racism, white skin privilege, the system is to blame for all of it. You know, they created, you know, this system that strips us of a knowledge of ourselves, a love of ourselves, the ability to come together and coalesce amongst one another to create the Black village the same way they created Little Italy, the same way they created Chinatown, the way the Jewish community is able and don't even have nowhere near the numbers that we have, but nobody ever calls them minorities. Why? You know, because minority isn't just about numbers. Minority is about a community that has been divided and conquered. And every time that we have an awakening, we have some type of movement, we have some type of leadership that comes and rises up internally to help us to heal, helps us to regenerate, helps us to redeem and transform ourselves. What do? They come in and they infiltrate the movements. They kill off the leadership, lock up the leadership, exile the leadership, everything that they can do to keep us leaderless. You know what I mean? So as far as blame is concerned, the blame is on the system. But because we don't have a knowledge of what I just expounded upon in a very general way, I could go more specifically, but for the sake of tonight's discussion, I'll just, you know, stand on what I stated generally. Because we don't know that they are to blame, we are still blaming each other. You got the Black woman blaming the Black man. You got the Black man blaming the Black woman. You got the Black children blaming their parents who came before them, and you got the parents blaming the children. Willie Lynch in effect like a mother. You know what I mean? So if in order for us to get started, to gain the type of freedom that we need to separate ourselves from the blame, which is not ours, so that we can then pick up responsibility, which is ours. You see what I'm saying? Blame versus responsibility. The blame is theirs. The responsibility is ours. We have to liberate ourselves from the ungodly weight of looking at ourselves as if we are to blame, as if we are inferior, as if we are criminal by nature or savage by nature. And this is what Malcolm X, when I was a teenager, you know, reading the autobiography of Malcolm X and learning about his life helped me to begin to understand that there is a system, you know, that is in place. The system that robbed me of making the best out of my life in my early teens and in going into my 20s is the same system that locked Malcolm X up and kicked him out of the educational system in his teens and sent him into the streets to become a drug dealer, a hustler, and eventually wind up in prison. It was when I read that book saying, oh my God, this is a system. The same thing that they did to him is what they did to me and what they did to my peers and what they're doing to, you know, all of our children as they send them into these so-called schools. You know what I mean? So anyway, long story short, we have to know our history so that we can place blame. You know, yes, the blame is definitely on the system.
But everything. The responsibility is on us.
Is ours. But the only way that we can get free to exercise that responsibility is we first have to be able to throw that white monkey off of our back that has us blaming ourselves and blaming each other for our downfall. You know, that's the first step.
Powerful, brother. Powerful, brother. Anybody else want to tap into what Brother Mike said? When you put it into perspective and you allow yourself to think on what happened, it made me want to move differently. I can remember thinking about my neighborhood and thinking about how I saw the men that when I was a kid, they were, you know, these men, they were working and stuff, turn into people who were strung out on drugs. And I saw that this was purposely done. So I know more single moms than I know married moms, married women. And it's because the rate that black men were thrown into jail was ridiculous. When you think about Reagan and what happened when he put this war on drugs, what happened was there were more black men being locked up. So now you have these kids that were born in the late 80s and the 90s being raised by possibly people who are addicted to drugs, or they're in one family household, so they don't have anyone to support them. What do we do with these kids? Because a lot of times these are the kids that's gang banging in the streets because they don't have structure. They weren't taught to fight. They weren't taught to live. They weren't even taught that they could live. When you think about some of the young people that you know now, what are they doing? And do they have someone that they can look up to? I feel like that it's people like us that they need to look up to. It's people like us that can make this movement even great, but we have to begin with ourselves. We have to take full responsibility for our lives. And I feel like not enough of us are willing to do the work, because it is a lot of work when you take that responsibility. Come on, go ahead, Brother Mike.
Well, because I'm trying to, and I don't want to, say too much or whatever, but I want to, that's where a lot of the brothers and yourself, sis, is on the ball right now. Right now is blame versus responsibility. We have to be awakened to what happened to us so that we can move effectively in the present. Someone said earlier that we're not going to be able to save everyone.
That's right.
And that's a heartbreaking realization to come to. Myself growing up in the Bronx in New York City, having my awakening, now being free to begin to remake my life in the light of love and truth. I was always in love with reading, but it wasn't until I read the autobiography of Malcolm X that my ability to learn and to use reading effectively, not just to entertain myself, but to create a mind, a well-rounded consciousness, awareness, is what Malcolm helped me to learn how to do. And I chose to go into the child welfare system to work with kids purposefully, to strive to, to put myself in a place where I can help them, to regain a level of consciousness that I wasn't brought up on. And then I also became a community activist and organizer in the projects that I grew up in. And, and I ran for the school board and got elected to the school board. And, this radical young black cat that was going to try to organize the biggest project development that I grew up in. It's called Eden Wall Projects in New York City, the third largest project development in New York City. And I began to actually agitate and have meetings and meet with the people. And, we can be idealistic and we could be theoretical and what have you. But until you roll up your sleeves and you actually go out into the community and meet people and try to bring them together and organize them and go to community board meetings and all of these, different places where people come together, you really don't know what this is about, until, you can have knowledge, but if you don't have wisdom and understanding, like brother said, knowledge is only half the battle. Anyway, long story short, the state of our youth is worse than it has ever been. I still work with young people. Our young, do y'all listen to the drill music? Do y'all really, how hood, this street versus that street? It's not just a Cali East Coast thing. This is everywhere we live. Our young people have been stolen from us, through hip hop, through, the drill music, through the
mass incarceration. They don't have anyone
they,
to support
they
them.
stole from us. But
now I'm just saying, I just want to say this, just so we can move this along. We're not going to be able to save everyone. We're not going to be able to take everyone with us. The energy that it would take, we can't move forward and build and at the same time be looking backwards and trying to, detoxify and
exorcise the demons that have taken hold and shape and entrenchment in our people. Like brother said, brother is an entrepreneur. 2 people on this panel were striving to be an entrepreneur. The brother is into his music, trying to get his music together. It's going to take for some of us to move on and begin to build what we want to see take place in our community. Show it, exemplify it.
Examples.
And then others seeing it being built will have a greater, possible wanting to become a part of it. But if you never build it, nature hates a void. People are going to stick with what they know. Right. So this is why I say, let's not be so hard. Let's not be so hard on those who don't know, because there's a whole system in place to make sure that they never know. It's a miracle that you got 6 people on this phone who are able to have this type of consciousness and have this type of discussion. That alone is a miracle.
Go ahead, Sincere. Tap in.
That's a fact. That's a fact, though. But I'd like to enlighten on what he said right there is everything he said is spot on. And I just like to add this. With that being said, who's going to make the sacrifice?
Who's going to make the sacrifice? That's it,
because
right there.
I'm one of the people that decided to say, you know what, Nick? I had a better shot. And guess what? I still got a better shot. But I had to say, you know what, Nick? Maybe if you could give these 5-6 kids a better shot than you had, because you kind of gave it away, Nick. So you can strive for everything you can get, or we can get some of what you should have got and get 6 other kids established on what they need to have, so I can get 12 other kids after that, 18 kids after that, 24 kids after that. So I think it takes a panel, as we've shown right here, of diverse avenues. That don't mean you have to be poor to sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
The sacrifice comes with you sacrifice your time and your knowledge to show a person to get to a better place. In my case, it might come with sacrificing some royalties. But guess what? If you're really honest with yourself, what we've been talking about, you kind of knew you had your chances, your royalties. So if you want to be royal within self, as some of the great leaders have taught, as the Lord of Father Nation and God's earth have brought me to the awareness of knowing self and understanding the importance of self, everything ain't monetary.
That's right.
Everything can't be put into an aspect of what you gave or didn't give a person. It's really about what did you really do to impact 1, 2, 3 people, for really 1, 2, 3 generations.
What about
so somebody got to be the bad guy. Somebody got to be the bad guy.
So in closing, I want to ask each of you, and some of you have already given your what next. What next, Calvin? What next? What can we do now to help this cause along? And starting with self, what can we do now?
I think, to touch on something that Nick actually said, it does start with self-awareness. And I think something that's really important to me as a parent is that my son is very self-aware of who he is when he walks out of the door, that no one can tell him who he is because he actually knows. And I think that's, at least for me, it's vitally important. And in general, I look at myself as being the sacrifice. The lessons that I've learned in 35 years is so that he gets to start life from a place where he doesn't necessarily have the same issues, the same struggles, the same trauma. And granted, I know that every parent is going to fuck their kid up in some way. There's going to be some issues.
Come on, don't do that. Don't do that.
Going to happen. However, I do think, generally the goal is to get him to a place that the lessons that I've learned, he learns them in half the time, or whatever it is, so that he doesn't start life from the exact same place. And that, to touch on the point that someone else made, it's vitally important that he understands where we came from in order to be able to understand where he is now and then where we can ultimately go. And I think that, at least for me, education's always been super important. Whether that, and another point being that I hate when parents or people in general think that education starts in school. Education starts at home, and it's a continuous process of what you're teaching your kids.
Continuous.
Naturally, the system is designed to be racist. It's designed for the quote unquote winners to teach their history. It's not necessarily designed for our history to be really incorporated, because we get 1 month to kind of talk about it, where it's commonplace. So at least for me, it's, let's go to museums, let's go to the art museum, let's talk about anything about our history, so that you have a solid understanding of, again, who you are and where you come from, and then where you can ultimately go. And as far as like what I potentially do, so not just for my son, but there's a program that I participate in called Braven, which focuses on disadvantaged college students who come from Black communities or immigrant communities, and teaching them through the lessons that I've learned how they can kind of fit into corporate, and that everything isn't as black and white. There's lots of gray spaces that they can potentially play in, that they can have lots of careers in a lot of different facets. Because I think a lot of things that happen in the Black communities, we see CNAs, or we see a certain particular job, and that's all that we know that really exists, that's out there. But there's tons of different things to do. And so at least for me, it's an opportunity to kind of show them that there are a ton of different avenues to get to wherever it is that you want to go, and that no one path is the same.
That's why I love him. This is why I love him. I swear. I love this dude. I love
his panel. I
hate to say that, but I love Calvin. I'm just telling you, Calvin. I got a man crush on you, player. I got a man crush.
Shalom,
and I ain't never had one of those in my life. I got a man crush.
That is so beautiful. See, this is what we need more of: Black men together, just upping each other. This. Oh, thank you, God. Thank you, God. This is one of the reasons that I wanted to bring the men back. I'm going to keep bringing you guys back, because the world needs to see Black men can. The world needs to see Black men can. And if God placed that on my heart to continue to highlight you guys. So what about you, Darren? What now? You are moving and grooving. I love the unit that you and your wife have. What now?
For us, and it's like somebody mentioned, is to now the point is, and we're already set our in January. As soon as January hit, we're just going now. Like everything that we feel is in our mental. Like I said, we can bounce ideas off, but at the end of the day, hopefully everybody's self-aware enough to take ideas from other, but start walking your walk. So in January, it's like we're just walking, and I might have been Brother Mike. Eventually, it's to the point now I feel as if they're done listening. And people are to the point now where it's always been a monkey see, monkey do world.
They need to see it.
This is what it, because there's no way this skinny jean fad would have came without that. Like we're copying. Like you'll never get me in them. Everybody's not a monkey see, monkey do person. And so if we just start walking and by action, then though eventually somebody might come, hey, you know what? Why do you do this? And now you have the floor. It's hard to get the floor though when people don't
copy
want to have it, if that makes sense. Like everybody don't want to hear what we got to say, but trust and believe if they're still going status quo, life is shitty, but you're just doing your own thing, and like, damn, they going fire. Eventually they're going to want to come in, and that's when you start snatching, you'll start snatching these followers. But I think it was Brother Mike, when I said everybody, we can't save everybody, is because everybody don't wanna, but it's there.
Not ready.
That's right.
The moment they want it, they're gonna find somebody to mimic and go from there. And the Most High will start putting people in your circle specifically for that reason. We all have a gift. Everybody might not need my gift. Everybody might not need Nick's, but we're all needed. And
everybody's somebody's going to gravitate to. I was having this conversation with Nick. I said there's people out there right now. This is why I think this panel is so powerful. everybody on this panel brings a little bit of different flavor. There's people that need to see themselves up here. They need to see Sincere. They need to see Rose. They need to see Brother Mike. They need to see Darren. They need to see Calvin. They need to see you guys out there up front in the open because they need to see different. They need to see somebody that's chasing their dream, Rose. They need to see him in the studio, you know, doing what he needs to do to get his music up and running. They need to see, you know, Sincere talking about the challenges. They need to see Brother Mike doing his videos. They need to see you guys braving. They need Darren, you know, they need to I have a story. We all have a story to tell. But if people don't see the example, they won't think it's possible. Mm-hmm. That's why I put myself out there so much. I put myself out there and I tell my story because it's like I need to, Nick, because it's like I'm not the only one, and I need people to realize.
Can I say something on that though?
Of course.
I gotta give you that on that, because that was one of the reasons that armored me to be part of your story. We talking about us, but let me give you yours for a minute. That's a lot of courage, girl.
Thank you.
Step on outside that box, especially with some strong-minded men, because we bring it. You know, you get what I'm saying, and as I can tell, none of us hold our tongues.
And but I don't want you to.
It takes this type of foundation. Because me and you just went through something last week, and I had to man up and say, "You know what? This is what growth is." And
wasn't it?
She'll tell you, I don't apologize too often. I don't like to. And it's something that is nothing wrong with it. But like we just talk about, I'm living 2 generations back. Men is men. Even when we wrong, so what? We pay the bills. You know, and I had to loosen up and understand that even with my friends now, I'm learning how to say, I love you, brother. I love you, mom. I love you, sister. Because we take that for granted. And I just want to tell all y'all, love y'all, and it's a blessing to be a part of this.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Lori. I see you out there.
Likewise.
My girl here.
I got to get at you, brother Mike.
She has a podcast called Lemon Drops and Lap Dances. She's actually watching this with her son. So thank you so much, Lori. This is so powerful because you have women like that she has a young son and she's watching a panel with her son of Black men so that he has awareness of the things that he's going to face and he has awareness of the struggles, but he also can see the things that happen. What happens when you have like-minded people who are saying, you know what, I'm not going to be a statistic. I'm not going to fall prey to the environment that I grew up in. Yeah, I was smart in school and I had my own challenges, but I know myself now and I'm going to create my own business because I know better. I don't need to work for anybody. If I have to go and work and help my brother, I'm going to do that. If I have to take this job working in a youth detention center to bring awareness to these kids, that's what I'm going to do. If I have to get on a platform called Braving, that's the sacrifice, bro. That is the sacrifice right there. We have got to be willing to make the sacrifice if we're going to save ourselves. We have to. So Rose, what now? What are you going to do to keep moving and to just bring awareness? I love the post. I see your mind just blossom, and I see what happens when you decide to take accountability for your life. So what now?
Definitely. What I've been doing since I built my own studio inside my apartment. So you know what I mean. Like what I've been doing is I've been bringing like the kids because I've been mentoring for like the inner city youth for at least like 10 years now. So like the kids like they help them get on track after school and everything. So the kids who are interested in music, I do bring them over sometime to show them how to work the boards and show them how to record if they're into that. You know what I mean? That's all we can do is lead by example, though. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I want to continue doing.
That's right.
And showing them that it's.
But make sure you post your music, player.
I got you.
I'll be sharing
it. For real. I support mine, man.
Definitely.
Yeah, we got to get you on Barbershop and Mike's. We got to get you on that other podcast.
As long as you lead by example, though, you know what I mean, and you know who you are, you know what I'm saying, like the youth, they should follow, man, and try to jump on board. You know what I'm saying? I try to stay in contact with the youth as much as I can, though. Because I was one of them out there. You know what I'm saying? And it don't look good out there no more. You know what I mean? It's a whole nother time right now.
The grass is not greener over there. It's not greener. It's a facade. It's a facade. It's a purpose-driven.
You know what?
facade.
It's green over there. It just died fast as hell.
Real quick, it turns yellow. Let some hard rain hit it. Rose should be the first guest.
Man.
I know I am E Digger. I wanted him to go through this one first, and then the time frame. So I'm a co-host on another podcast called Barbershop and Mics, and we are looking for a guest to bring on. And I wanted to ask Rose to come on. The show airs live at 3 p.m. So if any of you guys, you can show it again. Yes,
show it up. Show it up.
So if any of you guys are interested in being a guest on the podcast, just hit me up or let E Digger know. Or if you guys are a part of the Barbershop and Mics group, just let us know. We're going to begin.
I am.
Nick. All of you guys I'm bringing on. Listen, I told you, anybody
good information in there.
God does not
good
make
information.
Mistakes. Yeah, God does not make mistakes. I truly believe that all of us are connected for a reason. And well, some of us are family.
I just found out about Calvin.
That's my nephew. Rose is my nephew. That's
I know.
My son.
Love y'all. Peace.
So we're gonna
love
end
y'all.
with Brother Mike. We're gonna end with Brother Mike. Brother Mike, thank you so much for joining the panel. You brought a lot of value to this panel. All of you guys did. I love the energy. I love the difference. I love the meeting of
Happy Kwanzaa to everybody.
Yep. Happy Kwanzaa.
Happy Kwanzaa.
So
happy holidays.
What now in ending, Brother Mike?
Hey, peace. I definitely respect everyone who's on this panel tonight, particularly you, sis.
Thank you.
Well,
thank you
I said everyone, but I gotta say you, for wanting to facilitate, the coming together of people. That's so important, and I found a lot of value in everything that everybody said, or a lot of what people said tonight. If we commit ourselves to following our dreams, to finding our purpose and our passion, and we overcome the fear of what other people will think, and the lack of support or the hate that may come when we begin to move on and distinguish ourselves from the masses. If we could fight our way through that and begin to do what we are uniquely prepared and shaped and here to do, then we will begin to fill out the community that we want to see, instead of continuing to complain about the degraded, third world country atmospheres that we live in that we don't want to see. So I'm one, I don't like complaining. I don't like griping. I don't like whining. I don't speak about white people. I don't even speak to this this illusory, this we that we talk about. I don't even speak to the we anymore. I speak to the individual. I want to encourage the individual to find strength in themselves, to find courage in themselves, and to do what they need to do the way they see best fit. I'm not trying to make you a 5%er. I'm not trying to make you a Nation of Gods and Earths member, or a Nation of Islam, or you got to be a Buddhist, or you not black, you ain't no crayon, you got to be a Moor. I'm not, whatever it is that helps you, whatever it is that helps you to get to the point where you begin to see divine value and strength in your existence, so that you can begin to do what you are here to do, whatever it is, by God's, do it. You know what I mean? And so myself, I am a Black nationalist. I do believe that we need to look upon ourselves as a nation. I do believe that wherever we exist, in whatever city that we're in, that we need to be working to create some social unity amongst ourselves as Black people, so that we can feed that empowerment into our politics and our economics,
so that we can begin to carve out neighborhoods that we own and control. I do believe that, and I want to see that in my heart of hearts. But having been one who tried to do that, I know at this point that before we can get to that, we have to be who we need to be. We need to be about our own refinement. We need to be about our own evolving through knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and truth. At this point in my life, I'm more interested in spiritual matters. And when I say spiritual matters, I'm not talking about religion, but I am talking about the fact that I believe that we are the living temples of the living God. And we need to start, and we need to, and however, I know some people don't believe in all of that, but trust me, in your body, there is a spirit, there is a soul that connects you to the author, the creator of this universe, in this reality that we are living in. Stop focusing on what other people are doing and begin to strive to magnify that soul, that spirit that is within you. And I guarantee you that whatever situation that has been holding you back, all of those obstacles will begin to fall away as you begin to magnify and overflow. A lot of people have been talking about sacrificing tonight. Sacrifice your connections to this world, as it is, to your flesh, to your addictions, to your lusts and passions. That's what's holding us back. You know what I mean? The flesh is holding us back. If we begin to magnify the spirit of love, the spirit of truth, the spirit of compassion and empathy, you know what I mean? Starting with ourselves and starting with those who we have direct connection to encourage and inspire, everything else is going to take its natural course, man. And I thank everybody for allowing me to build with y'all tonight. And keep inviting me. And sister, you inspiring me to restart my own podcast, possibly using the Zoom technology. So
listen, I love my producer. My producer is so awesome. E Digger, you are so awesome. So I truly believe that God
grandbabies. I love y'all.
Have a good time, Grandpa. Thank you so much, Nick. I appreciate you. We're going to be closing out in a minute. I just want to read something because as you were speaking, Brother Mike, this came to my mind because this is exactly what we need to do. So one of the clubhouse rooms that I go into is Renewing of the Mindset. It's every day, 10 a.m. Eastern time. But what this room is based off of, and I want to close in this, is Romans 12:2. And it reads, and be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the continuous renewing of your mind. Already. That's it. If you have to unlearn what you've learned all your life. You have to unlearn what you've learned all your life, especially if it is not working for you. I had to unlearn, and I'm still unlearning habits. I'm still unlearning things that I brought with me, things that my mom didn't realize, or my, the people that were around me didn't realize that they were holding on to themselves. And what I also realized, I'm going to close in this, is that my healing is attached to other people's healing. I realize now that the healing is not for me. So the healing that you guys are doing and the positivity that you guys are pushing into this world is not for you. It's part of your purpose. And once we begin to move like that, yes, Roger, yeah, I am too, cuz so am I. Once I begin to move with the knowing and the knowledge that I am purposely built to be here, that's why God placed me here, I begin to think and move differently. And that's what I see you guys doing. And I just want to say thank you guys so much for being guests on Think and Grow with Vette Green. You are definitely a part of the panel now. I'm going to talk to my producer about this. You guys are going to be coming back. I love the energy. I love the knowledge, and just continue to bring your true selves. Continue to bring your true selves. Is there anything else that somebody would want to say before we close out? Thank you so much, E Digger. You are so awesome. My producer is the bomb. Make sure you guys check him out if you're looking for a streaming service. Very, very knowledgeable, and he works with you. He truly works. He wants you to win. That's what I love about Charm City DirecTV network. He wants you to win. So is there anything anybody else want to say before we close? All right, you guys. Well, this is the panel. You guys will be seeing them more and more. This is the panel. Thank you guys so much. Round of applause. Thank you, E-Digger. Have a good night, you guys. I love you.
All right, you have a good night.
Oh, thank you so much, Lori. That's my gal, my Oprah and Gail. What's going on, you guys? Thank you so much for joining me on Think and Grow with Vette Green. I hope you enjoyed what you heard today, and I hope that you come on back. Go ahead and follow me on YouTube at Think and Grow with Vette Green, Instagram, Vette Green. Tell me what you...
Thank you for watching.
What's going on, you guys? Thank you so much for joining me on Think and Grow with Vette Green. I hope you enjoyed what you heard today, and I hope that you come on back. Go ahead and follow me on YouTube at Think and Grow with Vette Green, Instagram, Vette Green, and of course, Facebook, Vette Green. Come back, tell somebody about this podcast. They may need what you got today. Come on back, come on back. Make sure you subscribe.